I used to work for the CIA. This was a very long time ago now. I won't tell you the specific role, but let me just say that I worked with a specialist branch. Instead of field operations and the like, we were much more involved with, research, I guess you could say. I wasn't a scientist in the traditional sense by any means, but had expertise in various fields. Our job was more to get shit done and find a way around things. This involved a lot of experimenting and trial and error. For what we were assigned to do, science could only guide us to a certain degree. After that, we had to figure it out through brute force. There was this one project we were assigned to. It was my final project. I don't care about revealing this because I have nothing left to live for now. Torture me, kill me, whatever. It makes no odds to me either way, because I likely would not survive much of anything for very long in my condition. Operation Black Chamber was the name of this project that I was on. Nothing even tangentially related to this project has ever been officially declassified or leaked anywhere. It builds upon prior research and knowledge gained from other projects, but the goal was much different. The main goal of this project was very simple. The higher-ups wanted to be able to alter the memories of the target without them being aware of any discrepancies in their memory. They also did not want it to be overtly obvious to anyone close to them that could potentially spot something strange. The idea was that the higher-ups could use this research to manipulate key enemies of the United States into obedience or anything really. Military leaders, extremists with power and influence, fringe groups posing a threat to potential interests or partnerships. It was a lofty goal, and we spent years throwing shit at the wall hoping it would stick. Who did we use to carry out these tests? This was the tricky part. With so many projects already declassified or talked about, it was a difficult thing. Even with the public forgetting and repressing things quite quickly, we wanted to be on the safe side. So we turned to prisoners. Long-term inmates with little to no hope of ever making it back on the outside. Death row inmates looking to be executed in the next couple of months. We would bribe them with money, reduce sentences, or even offer full pardons in some instances. This was not a worry for us, but it ensured that we technically had consent from the prisoners to do basically anything that we wanted. We would send someone in, and they would give a talk to the inmates and hand out sheets to sign up. They would present it as a real opportunity and a second chance at life. Made it seem like something you could not pass up on. Obviously, the forms were written in a way to obfuscate the true scope of the project and what they were actually consenting to. A lot of the prisoners at these talks were not exactly well educated, usually from poor backgrounds, and had to turn to a life of crime to even survive day by day. So, a lot of them would not even read it and would sign up instantly. The money we paid them was not good. Not even close to worth the trauma that we put them through, for those that even lived to be paid. NDAs were strictly enforced, and they had no grounds to sue, as they consented completely and utterly. I think there was only ever one instance where a death row inmate survived. They never pardoned him. They actually brought his date forward, and he was gone in a week. Who was going to believe him? Who was going to sue us after he was dead? People say anything when they're about to die, after all. The first experiment that we tried was theorized by using a lot of prior projects. We would bring subjects into an isolated room. After that, we would ply the subject with different kinds of psychedelic substances. The one in particular that we used the most was LSD, as we had a lot of prior experience. The idea was to try and induce the subject into a state where their minds would become much more malleable. We wanted them to be more receptive and more open to the idea of things that otherwise would normally never occur to them. We would try different doses and concoctions / mixtures of substances in order to get this state right. I remember one guy we dosed with a mix of LSD and mescaline with a few other compounds. At first, we would try just repeating to them what we wanted them to remember, but it would never stick, even when we got them to repeat it constantly. What worked best was imagery. The imagery was most likely to stick in their minds and form a new memory, so we would hire actors and artists and we would bring the scene to life in front of them. For example, we wanted to convince the subject that he had committed a murder. So, we would hand the subject a prop gun, and the actors would simulate an argument. They had a script and would escalate it, and then we would play sound effects and use fake blood. Then we would have one of the actors react and accuse the subject of shooting the other person. After all of this, we would induce sleep in the subject in order to get them to retain the memory in their heads. The hope was that after they woke up, the imagery and everything that happened would remain in their heads. We hoped it was the first thing that would strike them when they woke up. Even though he was out of it, the subject knew it was fake. The scenario was not real enough. So we moved locations. We took the subject to an underground parking lot. We let the actors walk in from the street for it to feel realer. And we killed one of them for real. The fear in the second actor's face would be real, as he realized we just murdered someone for the experiment. This was much more effective. For this run-through, we shook the subject awake while he was in the middle of REM sleep. We would shake him awake and panic him by being like, "What did you do? Do you remember what happened? Do you remember what you did?" We would demand he tell us, and he did, to a high degree of accuracy. We would berate him for about a week straight after that, make him feel shame and guilt and really drive it home. I think the shock and the vulnerability of being pulled out of REM sleep so suddenly made the brain more likely to believe what it saw. With another guy we tried this on, we decided on a different method for them to retain it. We would torture them until he got it right, telling him, "No, we know what you did and we want the truth." We would waterboard him and pull off fingernails until he admitted that he shot the guy in the parking lot. Sometimes, his brain would even invent a motive that we had not even told him to remember. This first experiment was only half successful. The subject would repress what happened for a while, but often, the torture and the trauma would keep coming back to them. Once the memories became unrepressed, and they investigated under the surface of the planted memory, they would relive the trauma that we put them through, and after that, they would realize that the memory was false and had more to it. This method was not fit for purpose. The higher-ups required the implanted memory to be undetectable for use against high-priority enemy targets and to manipulate enemy world leaders. The second the memory unraveled, there would be dire consequences, most likely all-out war. For the second trial, we developed a special injection for use on the subjects. This special drug would basically prevent them from being able to sleep. Vastly more powerful than any kind of stimulant available on the market. It wasn't even possible to brute force your way through to sleep, even through pure exhaustion. We knew that we were playing a dangerous game with this one. We knew that there was a high risk of death before the subject could even form the implanted memory if we got the timescale wrong. Basically, after being awake for a certain amount of days, the brain struggles to retain and create new memories by itself. This would increase the likelihood of false memories significantly. It could also severely impact their previous memories and possibly make the implanted one seem realer than even the memories from the subject's childhood. For the first subject, we strapped him down to one of those dental chairs. We made sure his orientation was upside down, just to confuse his senses even more. We kept him awake like that with next to no stimulation for around 48 hours, only being given the minimum water and food needed. After that, we would start telling him stories. We would show videos, pictures, playing music. We would overload his senses full of what we wanted him to remember. After days of no stimulation, the only stimulation that he would get was the memory that we wanted to implant. The intended implant this time was that we wanted the subject to recall that he was deployed in Iraq and executed innocent civilians. We would play screams, show photos of civilians being killed and blown up. We would tell him what he did, step by step, brutal action by brutal action, until he could not take it anymore. We would show him manipulated pictures of him in a uniform, photoshopped and manipulated images of him holding people at gunpoint. The sleep deprivation helped to mask any of the unrealness in the images or any conflicting memories coming to the surface. The second test was very hit or miss. It would usually result in the subjects becoming severely ill due to the sleep deprivation. They would also show signs of reduced cognitive ability and would sometimes act out of character. In some of the subjects, they never regained this cognition. They were fucked for life. This was obviously a failure and would be much too obvious. This leads me onto the final experiment that we conducted while I was on the project. We wanted to try something more hands-on, something we could manipulate by hand with tangible results. The final experiment would be surgery. The idea was that we would perform targeted micro-neurosurgery. This was in order to erase specific memory patterns in the subjects. We would also sometimes use chemical lesions to do this. For one of the subjects, we inserted a fine probe into the hippocampus. For other subjects, we would apply a controlled burn via electric pulse or neurotoxin to structures nearby the hippocampus. The idea was that this would erase / fuck up the subject's memories that were stored. Once these were erased and the subject was awake, they would be more malleable. We could get them to believe whatever we wanted. We would sometimes even use psychedelics in tandem with this method. For one of the subjects, we tried giving the subject the memory before we did the surgery. After that, we would try and destroy any memories surrounding where we wanted the previous one that we wanted to replace. This was a lot of guesswork, of course, and incredibly risky. One wrong move, and the subject was a vegetable. Or they could wake up not knowing their own name. They could wake up not ever having a childhood. When the subject woke up, we would try and solidify the memory through subtle hints and cues. We would sometimes have to straight up tell them the memory. Other times, we would share stories like we were close friends and slip in what we wanted them to know. This was essentially designed to be targeted amnesia, which we would then use to our advantage. Surprisingly, this test, once we learned a lot more about the brain and refined our processes, had the highest degree of success, which still was not very high. We ended up with a lot of brain-dead prisoners. It was just incredibly risky, and the side effects were much too harsh. In one subject, we noticed reduced cognition. Not only that, he became prone to periods of very intense emotions. It was like he just could not control it and had to share it or lash out. The emotions were incredibly intense and would result in a lot of rash actions being taken by the subject. After around 10 years of the project, it was shut down and deemed insufficient. They told us that the findings were not fit for purpose and would be abandoned. It was shady how they shut it down though. It seemed to be just as we were making progress and technology was advancing quite quickly. When we were wasting hundreds of millions of dollars of government money with no signs of progress, they could not be happier. The second that money was put to good use, it was like they had a fit. If you ask me, I think they saw something. I think something actually succeeded, but they just did not want us to know. I think they have refined these findings and used them in the real world. I can't ever know for sure, of course, but that is the feeling I have deep down inside my gut. It makes me worry though. If it did become more effective than we ever managed, then how would I ever know if they used it on me? How would I be able to tell the real from the fake memories? How would I know they hadn't used it on my family too? Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I joined the army right after finishing school. I decided to do it on my own, even though I could have dodged service or gone to college. I wanted independence, so I moved away from my parents. I served for a year. It was really tough. I never really clicked with the higher ranking guys, but discipline was okay overall. I even made sergeant. One night, a private got hold of some local mushrooms or grass and decided to use it all at once. While high, he went to the warehouse, grabbed a machine gun and ammo, and then went back to the barracks and shot almost the entire company. A few guys escaped by jumping out of a window. He jumped too, and then blew himself up. They sent out 2 volunteers to find him, me and my good friend Misha. After 5 hours running through the woods, We finally found the guy. He was naked, shaking, and covered in blood. Misha got wounded, but not seriously. We took him back to the barracks. After that, I was promoted and given 2 weeks leave. I went home to Moscow, where my friends were already celebrating my heroic story. We decided to have a barbecue in the forest with my sister Sasha, her boyfriend Nikolai, and my 2 friends, Vasya and Dima. We were a close group, practically best friends before I went to the army. There was this spot, about 6 hours away by car, near Tver. I can't remember exactly where anymore. Maybe I've blocked it out from my memory, or it has just been so long. It was an abandoned hut in the forest, nothing scary or mysterious. The gameskeeper had lived there not too long ago, so it was in decent shape. It had a big bed, a stove, and a small kitchen area. Nothing was leaking, and you could rest comfortably. I think Vasya's dad told us all about it, but it doesn't really matter. Our main worry was that someone else would be there, since locals might know about it. But no one was there. We arrived, settled in, and the only thing that we had to do was oil the door and windows so they would not creak at night. The first 2 days were peaceful. There was a pond about 2 kilometers from the hut. We cleaned it up, checked it out. You could swim and fish there. We were settling in and planning to stay a bit longer before heading back. Then, on the 6th night, it poured rain. We lit candles and started telling stories when there was a knock on the door. Sasha got scared, but we laughed it off, and I went to open it. A young man with a cut on his forehead was standing there. He said hello, and we invited him to join us for a drink. He declined, explaining that he and his wife had skidded off the road in the rain with their car and needed help pulling it back onto the road. They had a small child with them. I, Kolya, and Vasya decided to help. We walked through the forest. We were following the man leading the way. After about 5 minutes, my friend started nudging me, and I realized something was wrong. I tried to catch up to the man, but he vanished. Not just out of sight, but completely disappeared behind a tree, like he was never there. We panicked. Vasya started talking about the devil, spreading fear. Everyone scattered in different directions. I ran with the feeling that something was chasing me. Kolya was right behind. We slammed the hut door shut and realized that Vasya had not made it back. Dima and I went looking for him. At first, I was scared to go too far, but then I told myself it was just nonsense. The guy probably just went ahead and we were overreacting. We searched until morning, but found nothing. Kolya and Sasha came back to replace us, but the man never reappeared. We rushed to the nearest town to report to the police. They reacted fast and sent out a search team. We stayed in a hotel. No one wanted to leave without Vasya. My leave eventually ended, so I had to go back, but the others stayed. 2 weeks later, Vasya was found. Or rather, what was left of him. Not much. His head was separated from his body. The torso was ripped as if clawed apart. Both legs and one arm were missing, and his body was gnawed on. No one even thought the body was a man at first. The official story was that he got lost and bears killed him. I know better. I'm an experienced hunter. No bear would tear a body apart like that, and it's unlikely a human did either. I still don't know who came to our hut that night, and honestly, I do not want to. It's my first time green texting, so forgive me if it's terrible. Be me about 14, living in rural Australia, staying at a friend's house with an additional friend. Head count is me, my friend Jay, which is the house we're staying at, and friend R. Rural Australia is we live on property surrounded by dense bushland. There are snakes and shit. Smaller properties without livestock, about 6 acres. Neighbors are all about a 5-minute drive from each other. You don't really see another person unless you plan to. We have made plans to go explore an old abandoned burnt house near Jay's house, so we leave at about 5 p.m. We get to this property and have to jump a shitty fence and walk about 5 acres uphill along firebreak. For those who don't know, this is a gap in the bushland around one's property to stop bushfire spreading. The rest of the acre is all shitty spiky bushland that hurts. We get up the hill and see this old house. It looks pretty okay on the outside, and Jay says nobody knows how long ago it happened, and the place has just been left here for years, so nobody comes here. Outside the house is an old burnt truck, and a swing set that looks all black and burnt, but was creaking in the wind. Super fucking eerie. I am a bit nervous, cause it is just creepy in general. We go inside the house to explore, and it's all burnt, but still, stuff is everywhere, like the people living there just up and left, which, fire, so makes sense. Jay is the toughest of us, kinda rough life, smoking, drinking drugs at 14, not scared of anything. R is the wimpier of us, and I am somewhere in the middle. Jay is leading us around and looking at things. R wants to leave and keeps asking if we can go. Jay says, let's go and look at the barn. So, over the hill and further into the bush we go and find this big barn. I am thinking/hoping we are about to walk in on some creepy cult shit, but no, the door is locked and we cannot find a way in. R keeps asking us to leave because he is scared, so we start walking back up the hill towards the house, but we see that over near the swing there is a shed covered in overgrowth, so Jay wants to go and look. Me and Jay head over, and R is slowly following, cause he just wants to leave. We open the shed door and start to walk in when all of a sudden we hear a giant crashing noise, like something big and heavy falling on a tin roof, and then we hear laughing and the door slams from the house. Jay and I throw each other a look, and then she legs it out of there. Oh fuck. I start running, cause I was following her lead and also scared out of my mind. We run past R, who was screaming at us, "What is it?" And I just tell her to run. Jay is running ahead of me, and R is falling behind me, cause can't run well. We are running for our lives back down the hill via the fire break, cause fuck no, I am not running through that fucking prickly filled bushland. Literally 4 out of 5 plants have spikes that stab you. Fuck you, Australia. I am running downhill with Jay just in sight, trying to follow her, and I am looking into the bush, and I see a pole sticking out of the ground, and tied to it is an old ripped up shirt. It's odd, but whatever. Country people do some weird shit. My face when, I am also a country person. I am still running, and R is still behind, screaming at me and Jay to stop and wait, but Jay does not even look back at us. I'm like, what a bitch, this was your idea. As I am running, I am thinking, why haven't we got out of the bush yet? This is taking a long time to run this distance. I also keep seeing the same pole with the shirt tied on it over and over as I am running and peering into the bush. The bush is about shoulder height of the average height of a 14-year-old girl. What the fuck? This is like a loop. R starts screaming behind me cause she has tripped on a rock. I stop and tell her to get up and run, and I will wait for her. Jay is no longer in sight. I am standing there waiting for her to catch up, and I hear something in the bushes, like the bushes moving and crunching as they are stepped on. I can follow the sound as it goes by me. I notice the pole with the shirt in the bush where I have stopped. Are they markers? The noise goes by me and continues in the direction of Jay ahead of us. I am yelling at R to go faster, and she finally catches up, and we just run for it until we finally see the fence and road. We clear the fence like marathon runners, and Jay is standing on the other side of the road, waiting for us. All of us nope the fuck out of there, back to Jay's place. It was almost completely dark by then. Country roads have no streetlights, so it was like the scariest walk home of my life. We talked about it that night, and Jay said it must have been someone just fucking with us. Still unsure to this day what happened, and I cannot find an explanation that's not even a little bit creepy. I swear, some black op shit is going on in my area. I have a few. 1999. I am around 14 years old at the time. We had just moved to the area. It was way out in the sticks. I go back roading near the house with my mom and sister to just nose around. The road suddenly takes a sharp turn, ending in a field. There are no dead end or road closed signs anywhere. Military vehicles are everywhere. There are soldiers standing around in an empty field. The group turns and stares at our car with "oh shit" expressions. We just sit there, staring back and whispering what the fuck to each other. One soldier who is smoking a cigarette walks up to the car. He tells my mom to turn around and go back. We are out of there like the fucking Flash. We never see the military vehicles leave. There is no military base anywhere near our house. Be a few months later. It is the middle of summer now. I am laying in the living room reading a book. My sister is at my friend's house. There is a quiet hum that starts up in the distance. I figure it's just a tractor or something. No big deal, really. The hum starts to get louder. Wow, Mom, that tractor is getting really close to the house. That does not sound like a tractor to me and on. The hum very quickly becomes a roar. The whole house starts to shake. I run outside to see a C-130 coming at the house. What the actual fuck? It flies over low enough to hit with a rock had I thrown one. It lands in the field behind the house. Mom rushes me inside and locks the door. Mom, what the actual fuck? Mom fails to put on a poker face. She is visibly shaken. I don't know, Anon. I'm sure everything is fine. Probably see the story on the news. She lets out some nervous laughter. We never see or hear the plane leave. We never see or read a story about the plane in the news. Be another few years later. I'm around 17 years old at the time now. My family has moved about 10 miles northwest of the creepy military fields. We are just chilling on the porch. It's twilight. I am rocking to Aerosmith tapes on an old-ass Walkman. Flip over Permanent Vacation because Hangman Jury is fucking awesome. Lean back in chair and gaze up at the stars. See a couple of odd lights far up in the sky. I wonder what those are. Kinda cool. I'll just keep watching, I guess. Too close to be stars. Maybe they're planes. The lights do some crazy moves, loop-de-loops and figure eights. Well, lights suddenly sync up, quickly flying directly up and parallel to one another. What the fuck? The right light starts to suddenly drift to right, then starts rapidly falling. Left light slows and holds position. Right light starts to explode and disappears. What the fuck? The left light starts to move towards last location of the right light. What the actual fuck? I'm nuts. I'm seeing shit. Nope. I look over to see my neighbor standing on their porch, gaping up at the sky, cigarette burning in their fingers. Nope. I go inside. Never hear about any plane crash. I have trouble sleeping for weeks on end. Be a few years later again. Be around 24 years old at the time now. I am just chilling with my bros, stargazing and shit. It's 12 a.m. so the night is still young. I am paranoid as fuck at this point. My brother-in-law won't stop talking about black helicopters every time I see him. Past the spliff. Bro 1 casually points up at the sky and goes, "Hey man, what's that?" Me and Bro 2 look up. Fucking lights. My butthole tenses. There are 3 twinkling lights in a triangular formation. We just stare at them. Past the spliff. Shooting the shit. Maybe an hour or so passes. "Hey, bros, those lights have moved." "Oh, you're right, Bro 1. Bro 3, he is straight edge, so we know he is not drunk or baked. Isn't that the opposite of the stars?" Blink. Bro 2 looks at me like his brain is malfunctioning. I probably have the exact same look on my face too. Bro 1 stands up and turns to us both. "Hey, Bro 3 is right. Dude, what if it's aliens? Oh ha. Bro 2 pulls out his phone. Fucking Google Sky, motherfuckers. I have you now. Bro 2 fiddles with his phone. Everyone is suddenly quiet. Everyone thinks someone is fucking with the other. Bro 2 looks puzzled. That can't be right. Our high is fading really fast. Clenching intensifies. What's wrong? Please, for the love of God, just be too high to use the phone properly. Please be nothing else. Says there's like nothing there. Bro 3 turns. Let me see it. Bro 2 is annoyed, but holds up phone so everyone can see the screen. Nothing is there. Everyone, except for Bro 1, rolls for poker face and gets critical failures. Nervous laughter. This feels familiar. Suddenly have an idea. Bro 2, point the phone at the Big Dipper. Please, for the love of God, just be broken and nothing else. Watch in horror as the Big Dipper appears perfectly in the sky. Everyone looks back at the triangular lights. They start moving now with the stars, but they are way too fast. The light stops suddenly. They shoot up into the sky, disappearing from view. Bro 3 is just like, what the actual fuck? You saw that, right? Please let this just be my imagination. Bro 2 is like, yeah, what was that? Bro 1 is like, who cares? Pass the spliff. My face went. I am stone cold sober now, and Bro 1 is just worried about his joint.